Hi and welcome. My name is Ilana King and I am an entrance exam specialist. And in particular, I'm a 7+ entrance exam specialist, and I am going to talk to you today about a technique that I use in teaching maths for the entrance exams. And all of my sessions are really dynamic, and I really have to think about the fact that I'm working with very young children, and an hour working with a 5 or 6-year-old can be really difficult for them. So I'm thinking about how we can make every session really fun and engaging. And one of the ways that I do that is I use a lot of manipulatives, things that we can hold and use and take us away from paper and pencil all the time. So today I want to talk to you about maths, and in particular maths dice. So when we're thinking about the 7+ entrance exams, there is a maths paper that the children need to sit. It's all done by pencil and paper, but a large part of it is mental arithmetic, and children need to have a really strong grasp of mental arithmetic, and also number bonds, times tables, facts, number facts that they have to have memorized. So I've got a fun way that that we can do that, and I'm going to show that to you today so that it's something that you can do with students that you are teaching. So the first thing that you'll need is some maths dice. Now, maths dice is something you're going to have to purchase. Unfortunately, it's not something that you can make. So I've done previous videos on story dice, and you can make your own story dice. Unfortunately, it's not the same thing with maths dice. So this is a set I have from a company called Think Fun, and it's got a little bag. I'm just going to open that up and tip them out. I think I've added some dice into here. I think this is more than the original the original set was, but I think it came with a good variety, and I've just kind of chucked some more in over time. So you can build up your own set of maths dice. You can see that these are just standard dice, so these are really easy to get hold of if you didn't want to actually use a bought set that was complete. So what I tried to do is have two of everything. So I'm going to remove some of these. I'm going to have 2 of the 6-sided dice, but then you can see we've got some other special dice here as well. So these ones are 12-sided dice. So we're going to use a couple of those. I've got 2 different sizes of those. I'm just going to put the others at the side. These ones are actually 20 sided dice, which are great fun. So I'm going to hold on to those. These ones here are 8-sided dice, and these ones here, which are a little bit more complex to use, these ones are 4-sided. Sorry, yeah, 4-sided. They go up to 4. And when you're rolling these ones, you're looking at the number that's right at the top there, which in this case is 4. These ones here are 9-sided. And then I've got a special dice, which has the operations on. Okay, so what's the point of all of these dice? Well, let's go back to the exam. This is always about the exam. Let's think about, what do they need to know and what do they need to practice? Well, let's start with times tables, because nobody likes times tables. They're boring to memorize, right? So here is a really fun way that you can work on times tables. So we're only going to need 2 different dice, and there's 2 different ways of playing this game. So I'm going to remove, so we know that we need 12, right? If we're going to be doing times tables up to 12. So if you want to do the full set of times tables, you remove all the other dice, and we're just left with the 2 12-sided dice. Really simple game. Just roll the dice, and you've got to say what the, look at the numbers that are on the top, and you've got to say what that times table is. So really, really easy. The problem with this is that it does go up quite high. And when we're thinking about the 7+ exam, we actually really only need to worry about the 2 times table, the 3 times table, the 5 times table, the 10 times table. So this is great for your advanced students who might want to do the whole lot of times tables, but not so good because you can't control what they actually roll on the dice. So there's another way of playing this game. So let's say that you wanted to just do the 3 times table. So we're going to take away one of these dice, and we're just going to use one. Okay, and you can bring, if you want it visual, you can bring in another and say, okay, we're going to do the 3 times table, so we're going to leave that red dice there as a reminder with the 3 at the top. They're then only going to roll the 1 dice, so it's going to be 3 times 10. And this way you can ensure that you're only working on one particular times table and you're not actually pushing them beyond with two 12-sided dice. So times tables, you can do it different ways there. If you have one of these dice, okay, you can use that just for visualization. So leave them there and then just roll that one next to it, just so they can see the entire thing. So that's times tables, but it's not just times tables. We need to think about all kinds of other operations as well. So what about just adding? So if we're thinking about adding, so there are so many different ways of doing this. If you have a good variety of dice, you can gear it towards the level that your student is at. Perhaps they're just at the beginning and you can, use a couple of the smaller dices. So you might choose, let's say, that dice and that dice, and you just get them to roll them and lay them out. What is 4 plus 6 and give you the answer. But of course, we need to push them on much beyond that. You can bring in a third dice. You can keep the numbers quite small and just roll all 3 dice, 2 plus 6 plus 4. And that just pushes them a bit further into 3 numbers. But of course, you can take the numbers larger. We've got this dice that goes up to 20. We've got this dice that goes up to 12. If you were to roll those 2 now, you could end up with 2 single-digit numbers, as I have just then. But some of the time when you roll it, you're going to end up with larger numbers. We'll roll it again. And here we go into 13 plus 9. So when you play this game with the larger numbers on the dice, obviously it's going to get a little bit trickier. You can actually go even further and say, let's roll 3 of these larger numbered dice, okay? And then you're talking about how are we going to deal with those 3 numbers? Well, let's think about adding up the 10s and the 1s separately. And it's all very visual there. You could even do that to make it a little bit easier for them to think about what they're doing when they're adding. So they're really, really flexible. And of course, you can do subtraction as well, even without this function dice, you can still do subtraction. If you're going to do subtraction, you need to manage it a little bit carefully. So you need to start with a dice that has larger numbers on it, and then you're going to want to use a much smaller dice. Otherwise, you're going to end up in trouble with negative numbers. So if we have that dice, let's say, and this dice, we have 11, take away 4, it's going to be possible to do. You need to be careful, obviously, in the order in which you have them roll the dice. But there are other ways of doing this as well. You can combine the dice with one of my favorite tools, which is a whiteboard. A whiteboard and whiteboard colored pens. These, I wouldn't be without these ever for any session. So you might want to play a game that is something like first to 20. Start off with smaller numbers, okay? First to 20. So you're going to roll the dice, right? And you've got to decide how many dice you're going to roll. And so perhaps we're just going to roll 2 of the smaller dice, okay? And see what we get, add them up. Oh, well, we've got a 0 there. So we got 2. And then obviously you're each doing this in turn. And then roll them again. And this time we got an 8, you can't see it off screen, and a 4. So they've got to add those up and they get 12. Okay, we've got 12, but now we've got to think about what does that add up to all together? Okay, well, we've got 14. That's the new number we're working with. We roll the dice again. We've got a 9 and a 4. So that's 13, and we add those. And what do we end up with this time? Oh, we've gone past. Excellent, 27. So you win. So if you're doing this at the same time, you can up this first to 20, first to 30, first to 50, first to 100. It depends on the child that you're working with and what they can manage. So you can combine the dice in any form you like with the whiteboard and end up with really flexible way of having a little bit of fun while practicing using numbers and remembering how to be quick and accurate, I guess, is another thing. So we're looking for accuracy and speed. So you could play it against the clock. You could have like a stop clock on just on your phone will work. And, you know, you could each have a pile of dice and, you know, first to 20, you each got a whiteboard and who's going to be the quickest, you know, that's the fastest time you can get to 20. There's so many different ways of using them. And really, they just make this so much more fun than sitting and using pages and pages of worksheets, which are just dull, right? So this is another way to really mix up your sessions, keep them fun, dynamic, and engaging. So I hope I've given you some good ideas to use in your next sessions with students, and I will see you again in the future. Goodbye.